A boss mom doesn't allow society to tell her that her goals no longer matter. She handles her business both inside and outside of the home. Welcome to the Bawse Mom Movement Podcast with me, your host, Ashley White, where you'll hear me speak with millennial moms who have not allowed the title mom to stop them from achieving their goals. During this podcast series, we'll discuss how we balance it all and other mom-related topics. It's a space for all my bossy mamas, whether you're an entrepreneur, mama in corporate, or both. Being a boss mom isn't easy, but it's our lifestyle. So with that being said, all right, boss moms, let the movement begin. Hey, boss moms, welcome back for another episode of the Bawse Mom Movement Podcast with your host, Ashley White. And I am here with a special guest, Miss Nishee Moore. And she is a mental health therapist and a mom. And she is going to talk to us tonight about maternal mental health. As you can see, the title is TheCrazy Black Mom. So you may have heard this term before, but we're really going to dig into it tonight and how we get deemed as the crazy Black mom, versus other races and so much more. So I am super excited. Nishee, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I love discussing this topic. So you titled it perfectly. I think people are either going to relate to it or resist it. Either way, I love talking about it.
Exactly. And it's going to be good conversation. So I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to the listeners.
Wonderful. I am from Philadelphia originally, currently living in Atlanta with my husband and two boys. I am currently baking my third boy. So official
boy mom.
Through and through. I got my bachelor's in psychology from the illustrious North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. And then when I got to Atlanta, I went to Mercer University for my master's in clinical rehabilitation counseling. And so that's usually dealing with ADA, people with visible and invisible disabilities. As a combat veteran, people with disabilities have a soft spot in my heart. Treating them as equal citizens is a big deal for me. But once I became a mom and learned about how my pre-existing conditions and things that I had been through as a child, or even as a combat veteran, rolled into my mothering, my interest in maternal mental health. And so what I try to do is partner my education in rehab counseling, because I believe that maternal mental health is an invisible disability, especially for Black women. I think we try to mask it and push through, and that's how we end up with labels like being crazy. And so if I can get women to understand that this is an invisible disability, but it requires treatment, and to acknowledge it, then that's how I pair my education with my passion.
Right. I love it. Okay, so I wanted to touch on a few things. I'm not going to shade you. I'm going to show HBCU love because I actually like North Carolina. I think that is a phenomenal school. When I was working in education, I wanted to work there so bad because it was just one of the leading HBCUs, especially in the tech field. And then when I transitioned into HR, I was actually recruiting. I was based out of Charlotte. And I was the company I was working for was an engineering firm. So I was like, we got to get on North Carolina's list to recruit these students. I'm trying to tell y'all, these are some of the best Black engineers across the US. And, we got to convince sometimes, right? Unfortunately, because it wasn't that many of us in the firm, but I made it happen, honey.
Do that.
Like, the short time I was there, I'm like, yeah, I'm tapping into this network. So I ain't going to throw no shade tonight, but as a Bethune-Cookman alum.
You know what? Wildcat born, Aggie bred. I was in Bethune for 2 years before I transferred to Aggie land. So you can't shade me. Like, I'm here.
I can't. You left us though.
I did, because I'm not Caribbean enough. I feel like the culture down there is rich. And when they realize you're not part of them, they treat you funny. So I had to go a little bit further up north where we say John and still eat sandwiches and I can listen to Go-Go. I had to go a little farther up north without leaving the marching band. So that's how I ended up transferring. But yes, I am familiar with Daytona.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, okay. For the band too. Love my band folks. So
Yes,
that's good. All good energy. And I was a
yes.
psychology major, but I did not choose the therapy route. Almost. Literally my last year, I was like, I don't
Right.
think so. I'm gonna do therapy in a different way. But it's great to see how you went into the field and how you said you joined the passion with your work, and I think that's the best way to do it. It makes you feel like it's not a job, right? Or a
Yeah.
career because you love what you do. So what interest, I know, well, I want to touch, I guess, a little bit deeper into you going into the maternal side. And I love how you said it's an invisible disability because it really is. And we don't talk about it enough. I know even myself, I did not realize that I had some bits of postpartum until after.
Yep.
And I think one of the pieces that led me to actually acknowledge it was my mom telling me how much weight I had lost. And you don't think about those things because you're just so wrapped into being a
Yeah.
mom, especially if you're a first time new mom like I was, is it doesn't really register. So
Yeah.
what I guess we could even take it back a little bit further. What even made you pick up psychology as a major?
I wanted to be a trauma surgeon. So
Okay.
I wanted to be in the adrenaline rush and the immediate
Mhm.
impact and the immediate solution part of the medical field. I started out a bio major and ran into a professor at Bethune who told me I asked too many questions and that bio was a hard science and that I would not fit because it is what it is. And as a
Mm.
freshman, you either take an intro to sociology or psychology course. And so I took an intro course and we had to debunk a social norm. So I decided to wear my hair all forward while I was on campus, which is not something we do in Western culture. In Western culture, we expose our face, we have our faces out. In other cultures, women tend to cover their face and show a little bit more modesty, or they're in cultures where the hair is more flowy. So it's still a bang or framing the face. But in Western culture, we tend to ponytail and convenience and pull our hair out of our face, maybe to show the first impression is the best impression. And so if I look bright and awake, I'm more socially acceptable. So either way, here I am, freshman on campus, wearing my braids forward. And people are like, you good? And so
Yeah.
I enjoyed the reaction I was getting from them. I did it for 3 days. I enjoyed the
Okay.
reaction I was getting from them. I enjoyed how I was able to explain the project in class, and it was a space for all of my gray area questions. It was a space for all of my but what ifs, and if I change this part, how does this now play a factor? And so I realized that maybe I was a little bit too analytical or maybe too out of the box thinking for a hard science like bio, and I changed my major to psych. And I was like, if I can ask all the in between questions here, this is where I belong.
Mm-hmm.
I've been asking
Mm-hmm.
questions since I talk.
Yeah, yeah, no, and that's so crazy because just being, even though I didn't go into therapy, but just knowing psychology, and it's like there is always a why.
Yep.
Like, so that is so fitting. And you really, I mean, I feel like to go into therapy to even take up psychology, like you really have, it has to be within, like
Yeah.
to even take on that. And I'm the same way. I feel like as a little girl, it's just like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? I don't understand. There has to be more to this
Yes.
to the story.
And it never set well with me when people be like, that person just, and this is just, and I'll be like, but you don't know them. But why? Like it was always like that's such a hard label to stamp on somebody. I need more. Have you talked to that person? You don't even talk to them. You're avoiding them. This don't sound right to me. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything about what psychology is, the being the soft space to ask the questions for the full acceptance of yourself so that you can show
Right.
up as your true self. Like everything about it is very much who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm an empath. So I had to learn very early how not to take on people's stuff, how not to, you know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So all of those
Yeah.
life skills and then just who I am, I was like, I have found where I belong. I'm supposed to
Right.
be in therapy
Yeah.
as a patient and a practitioner.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So going into, I guess, so you said you were in combat, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Which is a situation within itself. So did you start your family after, or had you already started before you went in combat?
I did not have children or a real relationship while I was in the service. I went in the service because I'm the first in my family, so first generation college student, and nobody could really navigate me through what that looks like. And Sally Mae at the time had me in a chokehold. And it was one of those things
Still
where
does.
I'm smart and I want to be in school, but I managed to max out on student loans junior year. So it was like, I can't afford to go back to school. So I withdrew from school the semester I made Dean's List, and the military just seemed like a foolproof fallback plan. So go to the service. It was not my anticipation or my expectation to deploy. But it's needs of the service. And so you don't get to be like, this not what I signed up for. I came in here for the other stuff. You got to do what you got to do. And it really stamped my experience as a veteran to be able to say I'm a Black female combat veteran. So you meet a lot of interesting people in the military. You meet people who come by choice because their family's full military. You meet people who are court ordered. You either serve time or you serve your country. You meet people who are in the military to get their family citizenship. So you meet a bunch of different people with a bunch of different stuff, and you're stuck on patrols or watches, as we call them in the Navy, with people. And eventually you converse. And when you do, with me being a listener naturally, with me being a question asker naturally, I was like, oh man, everybody jacked up.
Right. No, seriously, including the therapist, right? Because
it's wrong with everybody. Like, wow, that's a deep story. You just said that without any emotion. Like, you good? It was a real interesting situation. Some of the most polished people had the most dysfunctional backgrounds, and some of the most dysfunctionally appearing people had come from some of the most structured, most sound backgrounds. It was real cognitive dissonance. Like, wow, like, from face value, you don't fit nothing that makes sense in my brain. Like, I have to ask you more questions.
Right. And so from there, that is that what really led you to going into therapy?
Absolutely. So I just touched on psychology, and it was just a comfort space. It was something I was interested in. And then after dealing with the myriad of people that you encounter in the military from all sorts of cultural backgrounds, you've got 19-year-olds who are married, like with kids. This was wow to me. Like, you got a whole family. Like, this is not just a job. Like, they really need your
but you get additional benefits with being married,
when I got out, it was, say again?
I said you get additional benefits in the military with being married, right? Or is that just hearsay?
And even if you're lower ranking, if you have a family, you're not confined to the same structures as a single person like myself. So you don't have to live on base. Like, you actually get a house to go to. So it just looked different. Their experiences looked different. There was a maturity level that comes with that versus I'm just here because I don't want to go to college. I don't have nothing else to do. That 19-year-old versus the 19-year-old who has a whole family looked totally different. But by the time I was coming out of the military, the bachelor's degree was losing some of its stock. So it was one of those things where certain degrees, you had to have a master's in order to validate it. Like, it was par for the course at this point. And so I was like, if you can have a master's degree, I wanted it to fall in line with psychology. But again, at the time I was not married or had a family of my own. So I wasn't interested in marriage and family counseling. I wasn't interested in dealing with school counseling. As I understood it at the time, they were being pushed to doing more standardized testing. They weren't really talking to kids about what was going on with them or being a real resource for them. They were, it was part of the system. So I was like, for all of these things, child psychology, secret, I don't like kids. I love mine.
3 kids later, almost, right?
I love mine. And I will protect yours, but I'm not the friend that's like, I'm going to the park, let me get your kids too and take them with me. I'm not that friend. So I wanted to be in a field where, because you are taking on so much of other people's lives, they are literally dumping on you. There are sessions where people just come and cry, I wanted to make sure that I was in a space where what they were dumping wouldn't be too heavy on me, where it wouldn't feel like a weight. And so Mercer was just starting up the clinical rehab counseling program. And I was like, oh, that's me. Disabilities, people doubt I was a veteran at all. Furthermore, that I have a disability. And so I was like, this is where I'll be. And initially, I wanted to just work with female veterans.
Gotcha. That's an interesting story, but I mean, it's a great one. It's like sometimes you have to actually walk into the situation to realize maybe this is the route that I need to take, because I know I think I did my internship, and at the end I was just like, nope.
Yeah, it ain't me.
I might need a therapist, but I'm not going to be the therapist.
Yeah.
But that's so interesting. So do you feel like, I mean, I know you said you met a lot of different people with a lot of different stories, but is there some traumas or situations that even going through, because I mean, being in the military is a lot mentally, and I don't know how much you may have seen, but I know I have veterans in my family, and PTSD is real. So was there any, self-awareness that you went through that was just like, I really need to be in this space to help other people?
The person I was dating at the time had really bad PTSD, and his symptoms were very textbook. So he was a Marine, and he was doing the hypervigilance thing. So he wasn't sleeping very well. You roll over, they're not in the bed. You go to find them. They're standing watch. They're standing at the door, like on guard, but sleep. And this is rolling into the daytime where you're falling asleep at the wheel of your vehicle because you weren't sleeping, you weren't resting at night. So I was real adamant about making sure that he understood yo, this is a thing for you. Right. And I want you to get some help. So after that relationship ended was when I was able to really take more stock and inventory of myself. And that's when I was able to really notice some things about me. And that's what pushed me into getting therapy. Up until that point, I had never seen a therapist for any of my issues. I had never, considered it. I just knew I wanted to be the help, but it didn't dawn on me that I might have needed some help. Exactly. So I was able to, as most breakups do, they make you introspective, turn into yourself. And I was able to see some things for myself. And that's when I actually started going to therapy through the VA, and they told me I was a combat veteran. I just was telling the story yeah, this is what we did. This is where we deployed. This is where it was. And they were like, you're telling that story with no emotion, no affect. Right. It's pretty heavy. And I was like, oh, maybe it's heavy. Right. It's what it is, or what it was. And so it was the opening of the door to me unpacking some of my stuff. And so I have a diagnosis through the military of post-traumatic stress disorder by way of military sexual trauma. And so there was a lot of modalities used to help me treat my triggers and moving through that and getting through that. And in all of that, I was like, I'm getting somewhere. I've started dating someone new. I've been very forthcoming about what I'm dealing with that. He's taking precautions and making sure that he's being a solid partner for that. We get married. And I got married in September. Thanksgiving, I was pregnant. And this is my first pregnancy. So I'm apparently I was giving off, girl, you pregnant pheromones. I didn't know. My whole family, I meet them for Thanksgiving and they're having conversations in the background is she pregnant? And they're asking me and I'm like, of course not. Come on, y'all. Stop playing. Yeah. Very much so. I was very much 2 months pregnant, didn't know it. And so that meant that I had to cut all of my medications. For me, I cut all my medications cold turkey. So all of the medicines I was using to manage my anxiety, to help me sleep through the night, I cut them cold turkey because I had an idea, should I ever be pregnant, of what my pregnancies would be like. And so that's home medication and caffeine moderation. And I had all these standards for myself and expectations for myself. And so you cut your medications. That doesn't mean the problems go away. That just means you don't have the pharmaceutical assistance to navigate those problems. So that meant for me that I knew I would be more probable of dealing with postpartum different than I had seen it happened with other people. So I was already prepared, on guard, aware that postpartum for me would look like, it could look like anything.
Right.
Except it didn't look like depression for me. Because this is what everybody's pushing, postpartum depression, right? It didn't look like that for me at all. I had delayed onset postpartum anxiety. Well, what is postpartum anxiety?
Right.
You were already anxious, ma'am. The likelihood of you having anxiety in postpartum is just, it's right there in your face. But it wasn't something that was being highly talked about. Everybody was talking about the depressive symptoms and what that looks like. And so me having education, because I've completed my master's by this point, done internship and supervision, and having received some treatment for myself, I was like, okay, I know what this looks like. Like, I can't leave my house without running down a list of what ifs and catastrophes, and I have to protect my kids. So we're not going to eat, because if I go to the restaurant, but I'm focused on the food, and something can happen to my kid. It was deep. So I pulled it back and I was like, okay, look, you do know what to do. You have tools, is what we call them. You have tools. You know where to go for help. You have access to it because you're a veteran. This is what we do. And as, like, by nature, I'm an advocate. So if I see somebody in a need and I have the assistance, I'm going to go ahead and offer it to you. I was like, how many women, like, woke up one day and was like, I'm not okay, but didn't know what to do? Like, how many women were like, something feels really not right, but I don't know who to tell, and I don't know how to fix it. I just know this ain't it. I got to help them. I don't need to help Black female veterans in Atlanta. These women have their benefits. They got it. They're doing it. Okay. There's more female veteran tags in Atlanta than a little bit. Like, they get it. These other women need it. And this is the same year I moved, or I had my son the same year that a veteran actually committed suicide, and she was a mom. And her name evades me right now because pregnancy brain. But I felt so connected to her. Like, that's deep. To end your life as a mom, we're ready to give life for our kids, and you were ready to quit it all without even knowing what's going to happen to your kids. That's deep. And it was just like, all right, this is who I'm supposed to be speaking out for, because I'm loud and have no problem asking questions. And I'm supposed to be telling people that postpartum anxiety is a thing. I'm supposed to be telling them that it doesn't look like what my textbook said. Sometimes I'm angry like a bull, like I'm mean, like, what is this? Oh, there's something called postpartum rage. Like, it was like it all unfolded right in front of me. And I was like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I've been running full steam ahead since 2018 with maternal mental health.
I love it. I love it. And you're so, like, correct when you say, you know, what we press is postpartum depression. We don't even think about the other things. I honestly never really thought about the anxiety. I've thought of the rage without knowing, like, the actual name, but just thinking of the moms who, you know, get angry or want to kill themselves or their child, and just having, like, that anger or whatever the feeling may be, honestly. But we don't talk about the different types. And that was, like, for me, I mean, I just kept thinking about, oh, I don't want to fall into depression after I have my kid. Like, literally, because that's all we talk about. I mean, now that we do talk about it, because it really wasn't always, you know, this out there. But I think with all the known deaths now at this point, it's kind of something that, you know, we're acknowledging more of, but not to the degree of really explaining the different types and, you know, different the word I'm trying to think of, but the different ways that we could even tell, because half of us, like I said, I didn't even know. And I was more so depressed because it was just like life had changed so drastically. And it wasn't even just becoming a mother. It was coming out of COVID, because I got a COVID baby, and, you know, transitioning to this work from home all the time life, not wanting my baby to be out in public because of COVID and whatever the heck else out there that I didn't want him to catch. You know, it was just like all of these things in my mind. And then on top of just becoming a mom, not knowing what the heck I'm doing, still don't know a year later.
You're not doing.
But it's right. And it's just like all of those things. And it just goes back to, I mean, specifically with Black moms, like the crazy you're just being too whatever you're being, right?
You feel crazy, and then we've normalized the word crazy. Like, why he dancing on the corner like that? He just crazy. Don't invite crazy on such and such. Like, we've normalized the word crazy. It's umbrellaed for a lot of behavior that we don't understand. And so if we're talking about reaching out finally, or being still involved with your family while you're going through postpartum, very easily somebody might be like, girl, stop acting so crazy. It's not that serious. Just put that baby on a bottle. Girl, it's not that crazy. Like, you hear it so much that at some point you adopt it. Like, my motherhood just made me crazy. It just is what it is. This is the new me type of thing. Right. And it's one of those things where I absolutely me and my siblings absolutely used to say my mom is crazy. Absolutely. And then I became a mom and I was like, yo, she was terrified. She was completely paralyzingly petrified about all of the things. I had a very young mom and she had to work. And so now you have to trust somebody with your kids.
Yeah.
And hope that all day while you're at work, and this is before, you know, cell phones are easily accessible. This is with the gray screen on the phones and the beepers. Like, this is like, how do I know until I get off work and get back to my babies what has happened? And actually, in a situation when I lived in Seattle, a lady did beat me and my sister. So it's one of those things where, you know what I'm saying? Like, compounding.
I will be the crazy black mom in that situation. I will own that.
But when you start to understand more, my mother was scared, which meant she had anxiety. My mother was doing it by herself, which could have meant there was some depression there, because if your friends don't also have kids, they're not really your friends. Like, they doing stuff and not even considering that you could still go out. Or taking a day to be like, I'll keep the kids so you can just go get your nails done. Like, there's a lot of, and it's not their fault. If you're not a mom, you don't think about what a mom would need. Like, that's just not natural to you. And so it's one of those things where I was like, yo, my mom is not crazy. But you hear those stories. Yeah, my mom used to beat me. She was so crazy. Yeah, my mom used to make me sit at the table and eat all my food. She's so crazy. Like, you start hearing how many people, and we bond over that. It's like trauma bonding. Like, yeah, my mama used to beat me with this. My mom beat me with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and whoa, not okay. So I was like, that is my goal, to dispel the stigma of the crazy black mom. She's not crazy at all. She has unprocessed trauma. She has undiagnosed things going on that if she had the time, the resources, the space to be vulnerable and really work through her stuff, there's actually a name for what she is and what she's going through, which means there's a solution. That means there's treatment. There's a plan for her to navigate that and get back to more of herself and to feel less crazy. That's me. That's my job. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. Do not ever call a black woman crazy, because if I'm allowed to get in my bag a little bit, you have women like Casey Anthony who kill her children and she's dealing with depression. But then you have a black woman at the grocery store who snaps on her kids. Don't you touch another, right? And now we call it people on her. She fussed at her kids in a manner that you don't think to talk to children. She may have popped them with her bare hand, open hand, and now that has offended you. That woman straight up killed her children. She took them from this planet, and she's normal because she has depression. But this woman decided to keep her kids alive by any means necessary, and she's an unfit mother. She's not crazy. She's not crazy, and if I'm in 10 feet of her, y'all gonna know she's not crazy either.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, that's a word right there, because we do. It's so many like stigmas, and now I'm looked at, you know, wrong, like I'm doing something wrong, and I'm just disciplining my kids in the way that I choose, because discipline is different for everyone.
If you don't know anything different, you do what was done to you. And that doesn't mean that it feels good. It doesn't mean that when your kids go to bed and you're looking at them, that you're not now self-deprecating. You're not now beating yourself up. And now you started the day with a lowered bottle of self-worth, and you still got to do the same shit all over again. Am I allowed to cuss? I'm a cusser. Did I tell you that I'm a cusser?
I am too. And you know, we just go, shit ain't a cuss word. We just gonna keep going. It's okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's one of those things where you're already started on low. You've already got your own stuff. And I say very commonly that children are triggers, right? And this can be memories that you didn't realize were still there, or you thought you were cool with your dad, but now you see your kids with their dad, and now something about it is just roughing your skin, right? So kids are huge triggers for unprocessed stuff. And if you're dealing with that all day on top of your job, don't say you got to go to a job where you feel unappreciated and overworked, right? And then you have to deal with kids who are being very much naturally operating in their ego. I want, I need, stop what you're doing, pay me attention. Very natural behavior for toddlers. This is too much. You have nothing left to give. You couldn't snap on the people that's paying your bills. The little person's not listening when you say, stop, please, quit, hush. So now it turns into shut up, sit down, get out my face, right? That doesn't mean that at the end of the night, when it is all quiet and they still wanted to go to sleep on your body and tell you they loved you, that you don't feel like a piece of crap now. You feel horrible, but that doesn't mean tomorrow won't be different, because you've not done anything for yourself. You've not had time to process that. You got to go to bed. Tomorrow starts a new day. It's one of those cyclic things that if you don't get the break, if you don't get the permission to correct the behavior or process why you respond to your child that way, why your child crying is a trigger for you, why a human being who's only been in the world for 2 years keeps asking you why, because they've never seen it before. It's completely brand new to them. Who else would they ask why of? You're the subject matter expert on life.
Everything. You are mom or dad, like you have all the answers.
Challenge you, they don't know. They genuinely don't know, but you feel sized up and disrespected and questioning your authority. Whoa. 2-year-old don't even have a thought process to even come at you like that. Today, I'm going to stress my mom out. Today, I'm going to make her doubt herself, question her worth. She going to feel like crap and regret ever having me. Mission go. They don't think like that. That's not how they operate. And so if you're thinking that way about your kid, I need to establish authority so you know you need to unpack that, sis.
Yeah. But it's like, how do we?
Like that, you need to unpack them too.
Right. And it's like, how do we even identify? Because I think like that's the part. How do we identify so that we can unpack? Like what? I think
quiet, you are thinking about it like that. If when it's quiet, if on your lunch break when the kid is not around, you're actually like, dang, I had to fuss like that. Dang, I have to hit him like that. That was deep. It was probably my fault. I wasn't paying attention. I did take those 5 minutes and get in my phone instead. You ain't wrong. I did tell him I was going to get him a juice box and forgot, because I had 13 other things to do. And I said I was going to get it and I meant to get it and then I didn't. And because you asked me again, irritated, rightfully so, I snapped on you. Like when you're backtracking, when that mom guilt is perseverating and you can't shake it, that's one of those things where you got to be like, I don't want to feel like this no more. So how do I change what I'm doing to get a different outcome? Right. And for me, my mom was a fusser. I didn't get spankings. I didn't get hit. I'm lying. I've always been pretty flip at the mouth. So I've had a backhand to the mouth. My mom didn't do belts and switches and shoes. And she was just a very much talk to us like she talked to people in the street. She was a young mom from the city. So there was no, I'm going to talk differently to you as children. There was a very much get your ass to go. You know, we got to go get out the house. You know, we don't need to be late. Let's move. And I'm like, to 5-year-olds? Didn't know it was wrong. So I was very much, I want to speak to my children in a way that when they're older and I'm not there, the voice that they hear that's mine in their brain doesn't sound like the one I grew up listening to. The bad bitch that is my mother is the thing that pushed me when I was in the middle of the ocean deployed by myself, but it's also the thing that kept me from being vulnerable as a woman. We don't have time to cry. You just gonna have a headache and you still got to do whatever it was anyway. Skip the crying. This is a woman telling a woman never to cry. Don't nobody care about your period or what's going on with your period. The world does not stop. You go ahead and you take this Tylenol and keep it pushing. This is someone literally telling me not to acknowledge the symptoms of my reproductive system that could very much impact me being able to carry life later. Right? From my mom to a woman. These are the things, and this is the voice that's in my head. So acknowledging my pain, being vulnerable, these are things that I had to unlearn. Right. So it was the motivator, but it was also my little prison. And I wanted to make sure that when my boys are, I don't know, second guessing decisions in high school, or if a pushy chick is like, you supposed to be doing like this. Well, what mom think? Like, am I, you know what I'm saying? Like my brain automatically goes to the moments where I didn't realize it was my mom's voice in my head. What voice are my kids hearing from me? Right. What do I want them to hear from me? Which means my active voice needs to be the model of what I want them to hear in their repressive brain. Mm-hmm, so I can't bark at them all the time. Every once in a while, do they get barked at? Yes. I am human. I am tired. I am pregnant.
Right. Listen, even not pregnant.
More times than not, I stop myself. My children are very much aware that mommy does breathing exercises. I need 1 minute. You give mommy 1 minute. I will answer your question. Give mommy 1 minute. And then I make it something that because kids don't have concept of time. Tap your leg 3 times and I can catch 1 deep breath. And then I can respond to you versus barking at you when you don't, all you hear at this point is my tone. You don't even know what I'm fussing about. Because to you, you made a very simple request. I just want my fruit snacks, lady. I can't reach them. You can.
I don't need the extra.
I can't reach them. You can. Hand me my fruit snacks, lady. You're driving. Don't care. The fruit snacks are still up there with you. Hand me my fruit snacks, lady. Me fussing about, I got to drive and it's a green light and pop, pop, pop. Irrelevant details. 1 second. Give mommy 1 second. We have to be safe. Do you see the light? When the light is red, you can have 2 fruit snacks. It takes 2 seconds to self-regulate, but you have to be aware that you're probably already tired, exhausted, probably need sex, probably didn't eat today. You have to be aware of what's going on in you so that when somebody who you don't feel, oh gosh, the consequences are as great because you're not going to snap that same way at your boss. You're not going to snap the same way.
And if you do, you might not have a job the next
day. You
day.
automatically know direct consequence, but we don't feel that way about our kids, right? But there are consequences with these little humans. We are the consequence of what was happening from our parents. So it's one of those things where just take 2 seconds, sis. That is the name. That's where Breathe Baby came from. Me having to self-regulate in a pandemic. I have a 2-year-old and I'm pregnant and I can't even go to my mailbox. My husband, who is a textbook extrovert, is now working from the home. And he's irritated because your conversation is with somebody who doesn't care about technology and somebody who can't talk. You're not getting what you need out of life. I'm like, okay, this is a lot. I don't know how to be your wife in a pandemic. I don't know how to be his mom in a pandemic. I don't know how to grow a human without any support. There's 0 support. I need to take a breath. I can't. And that's what introduced me to breath work. And that is why it's something that I heavily push, because if you're not ready for therapy, for the constructs of therapy, for the doing your own work part, self-regulation is a huge starting point. It's a really big, I don't feel good. I want to feel better. Let's just stop the world for 2 seconds so that I can figure out what I need. And a lot of times as moms, what you need is really simple. You probably didn't eat today. Your whole inside is all over the place. If you're breastfeeding, you certainly didn't sleep. If your baby still finds their way into your bed, but their feet found their way into your throat, you didn't sleep. If you're behind on a project because you're not motivated by the job, you know how to do it. It needs to be done. It's not doing anything for you. So you're probably going to turn it in late. All of these things are like very, very obvious red flags. But if you don't give yourself permission to pause your day for 5 minutes and assess yourself, then whoever can get it can get it. And 9 times out of 10, it ends up being our kids.
Right. The unfortunate part of it. And I love it. I love because when I think about it too, just from your breakdown and just taking that moment to breathe, that falls in line with taking a moment for self-care, which is something that we completely ignore in most cases as moms, because we do have so many things going on, and if you are working, you're a wife, you're a sister, a daughter, a friend, and mom, and all of these other things, it's like, where is me
Yep.
time? Where
Yep.
do I fit that in? And it's so important for us to just stop and acknowledge, even if it's 1 minute, like
Yep.
get back to doing something that allows you to just have that time to decompress and not be mommy and not be bae and whatever else. Like it's just all about you. And I love that. And so is that something that you said for people that come to you, they're not fully committed to getting into therapy, but they need something. They need to
Yeah.
find a way out to figure out and identify these things. What does it look like for those clients, whether they're a part of Brief Baby or they're actually a therapist client of yours? What does it look like when we have identified the situation, the trigger? Maybe it's from childhood, like what you mentioned, figuring out things that may be from the voice of your mom, right? What does it look like when we now need to acknowledge that thing or that person that gives us these triggers? Have you had a conversation with your mom to talk about those things, even for you personally?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because I'm such a mindful person of what version or what narrative you have of me when I'm not around, right? Because everybody has a different version of you. Like Shay cuss a lot, and then there's some people who've never heard me cuss in person. And then you've got the Shay's not a nice person because I'm about the business. And there's some people who don't know me to be mean at all, right? So I'm very mindful of the narrative that you have of me, not who I say I am, who you, because of our interaction, say we are. So when I confronted my mom about it, I led off with, first of all, I know you did the best you could. I know what I mean to you as the person who made you a mom. So I'm not saying you're a bad mom. I would never say you're a bad mom. I know for a fact you did the best you absolutely could. Understanding that, I want to share with you some things that definitely didn't feel good to me. Things that I have carried with me that maybe you think you protected me from or didn't really hit me like it hit me. I want to talk to you about some of those things and how they made me feel. So I don't bark at my mom. There are some people who, because of their trauma, talk to their mom on the same level that they would talk to somebody off the street because the respect level isn't there. I have a kindness and a softness for my mother. And I always have. I've always, she's like, my Tina Turner, my Diana Ross, like she's it for me, right? And so I've always been mindful of how my words hit her as a human. But that didn't mean that I didn't need to talk to her about some things so that I could close that up and move on past it. And so we just had some real honest conversations. And because of my delivery to her, understand that if you had a mom who beat the dog snot out of you, then you might have a different relationship with how you bring things to your mom. But again, as I told you, my mom didn't hit me. It was just, I was parentified. I was her partner. I never got to be her child. I never felt, I was provided for, but I don't think I felt like cared for. I knew she loved me, but it wasn't like I'm your daughter. It was just like, you my rider, you my partner. If I say bust a move, you already know the direction. Like I always felt like I was a part of the team. And then I got older and realized that I should not have never felt that responsibility. Like that was a badge of honor for me for a long time, but that wasn't my job. Never should it have been my job. It's a responsibility to help you with your other kids to that degree. And so I really just had to let her know that I really didn't think I wanted kids because you made me hate kids. When you take care of your children your way is why I didn't think I could be good at motherhood. So I am very, very, like, that fills up my love tank when people are like, you are such a good mom. I'm like, thank you. Yeah. Like, I'm very intentional about being a really solid mom to my kids. This is not to say that they're not going to be like, Mom, you didn't do that right. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's always somebody else's perspective on what is perfection.
Exactly.
So I'm ready for my boys to tell me I got the whole thing wrong. But it is my goal to be as fair to them as possible. So I had a real conversation with her about things from her being a single mom to how she would handle situations when I would bring them up to her. not valuing my opinion, even though I felt like a partner. Like I was able to really like talk to her. And because of the way that I delivered the message to her, she actually owned a lot of it. She took responsibility for it. I really thought this was going to equal that. I really thought that pushing you that hard would make you super resilient. It did, but it also made me too hard. I wasn't good at friendships. I wasn't good at relationships. I'm still working very hard on both because it's such a default mode for me. So it's one of those things where I had a really positive experience in confronting the person that I felt broke me in a lot of ways. And I recognize that everybody doesn't have that. And so what I let them know is it's your choice to take it to them, because you don't have to, right? You're not looking for closure. You're looking for resolve. So understanding what the person did, that's first, right? Understanding that I don't care if you think your dad or your mom is the best person in the world, understanding that something they did hurt you. And you can give them that responsibility. No, my dad was great. He was always there, blah, 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 blah. He never said a loving word to you. That broke you, right?
Right.
Acknowledging that even your heroes failed you is a big part. If you have the relationship where you can go and touch bases with them and have that real conversation with them, which is a reflection of their growth and maturity, that's even better for them to be like, I received that, I did that to you. But you have to be to a place where it's enough for you to be able to say, I know who did it. I don't like what it manifested. I want to change that. And then act on that change, whether or not they acknowledge the change or that they're the reason there's a need for a change to begin with. So listening to the story of, you know, who impacted you in that manner pretty much lets me know if you'll be able to confront them on it. But again, I don't push for closure. I push for results. Now that we know the issue and we know where it stems from, how do we grow from that?
Right. Well, listen, I loved this conversation. I mean, seriously, because it's important, and it's especially important for Black moms, and it's to really talk about, first of all, maternal health in general, like for us is something serious, and we're seeing more, you know, deaths with Black moms, and it's so sad. And that's just the beginning stages, and then going into, you know, afterwards and just addressing, you know, health issues, mental health issues, physical health. It's just a lot. And I love to see us in our communities, whatever that looks like, right? Because you're on the therapy side, but even just these different support groups, like even just me starting the Bawse Mom community and having that relation, because it's something you said earlier. It's like, you may have friends that don't have kids. They don't understand, you know, the pressures and the thoughts and feelings that you have as a mom. So it's just so important that we're here to acknowledge and support one another. And I love to see it. So I appreciate you for coming on and sharing your words and your experience, your personal experience, but also working experience, working within the mental health field. And we just appreciate it. So I want to give you an opportunity to share how moms can find you, and anything additional you have going on that they are able to join or just support you in.
Absolutely. I am all for mommy having her village too. It's really dope to have a village for your kids, but having a community village for you is paramount in you being able to keep some identity and anonymity in motherhood. So you can find me on all social media platforms at Breathe Baby with 2 Y's. And then I can be found on Psychology Today, Black female therapist. You can book a 15-minute consult and we can decide if what I am offering is something you need. And if that's the case, then let's get to work.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much again for tuning in, and ladies who are listening, and then Shay for joining us tonight. And so my parting words that I always leave you ladies is to stay bossy and stay motivated. And I will talk to you ladies next week. Hey ladies, if you enjoyed today's episode, do me a favor and leave a 5-star rating and review. You can find the Bawse Mom movement streaming on Apple and Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and YouTube. Want to keep up with the movement? Visit my website at thebawsemommovement.com and subscribe. Thanks for the support, and I'll see you next time.